Hey guys, welcome back. If you came here after watching part 1, thank you, I really appreciate it. If you haven't watched part 1, please go back and check it out because it helps me get more views. But also, you need to hear me explain where corporations even came from so you can understand where I think we should focus our efforts. So go back, check it out. I put a link in the description. I'll wait here until you're done. All right, you done? Great. There are two things that need to be changed so we can fix our broken system: the laws that define a corporation and the public understanding of corporations and their shareholders. Corporations are generally governed by the state laws where that business incorporates. But before we can do anything about that, we need to get on the same page about shareholders and their place in society. So let me tell you a little tale of a plucky young man who created something incredible. The type of story that can only happen in America. Wally Ripple might not be a name that rings a bell for you, but he has an incredible resume. He built a Caltech electric car in 1968 as an undergrad at Caltech, obviously, and his car beat MIT at the Great Transcontinental Electric Car Race. Although he lacked creativity when naming his race car, he was a visionary in battery-powered vehicles because he became a research scientist at the prestigious Jet Propulsion Laboratory right after graduating. While at JPL, Ripple and other scientists furthered EV technology throughout the 70s and 80s, all paid for by taxpayer money. In 1990, Wally Ripple worked for a defense contractor called AeroVironment, where he designed the induction motor that eventually powered the General Motors EV1, the very first mass-market electric vehicle. After all these old ones, I guess. You know, these don't count. So I guess it's the first modern mass-market electric vehicle. In 1992, he helped found AC Propulsion along with Alan Ciccone and Paul Carosa, and this company was solely focused on electric vehicle development. They developed induction motors, high-speed battery charging systems, and the system control architecture that managed their EV technology. In the late 90s, AC Propulsion created the T-Zero, a prototype that pioneered the use of lithium-ion batteries and regenerative braking. It could even detect if a car was going to lose traction and automatically engage the rear brake regen to prevent a slide. A couple entrepreneurs named Martin Eberhard and Mark Terpening tried to push AC Propulsion to manufacture and sell the T-Zero, but they're a research company, and they're focused on research and development, not manufacturing cars for the mass market. So Martin and Mark went on to found their own car company using technology licensed from AC Propulsion. The control systems, the motor design, the regenerative braking, and they just had to put a car around all of it. They contracted Lotus to design the chassis and exterior as well as the car's suspension, and Martin and Mark's company was just left to figure out the marketing and the large-scale manufacturing needed to bring the technology to the masses. And that company is called Tesla. Huh? What's that? Oh, did you think Elon founded Tesla? No, 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 no. Elon wasn't a founder. He just bought his way into the company after all the hard work was done by other smarter, more hard-working people. While Wally Ripple was working at JPL, Elon Musk was just a kid in apartheid-era South Africa. His dad, Errol, was a rich, abusive property developer who got involved in shady emerald mines. While Wally was developing the EV1, Elon Musk was fleeing to Canada to avoid South Africa's mandatory military service, a proud tradition among cowardly rich kids. He transferred to UPenn on a student visa and then was accepted to Stanford for grad school, but he never enrolled, which technically makes Elon an illegal immigrant. While AC Propulsion was inventing modern electric vehicle technology, Elon was using his daddy's dirty emerald mine money to shift into shady Silicon Valley startups, a proud tradition among arrogant rich kids. Elon and his brother Kimball first started a company called Zip2 that put pictures of city maps on the internet and helped people find auto dealerships or something, and also helped newspapers send you targeted ads to your fax machine. I honestly don't understand how this business even made money. Who wants ads sent to their fax machine at home? I read the Zip2 Wikipedia like a dozen times and I still don't understand what the fuck this company even did. Well, anyways, Compaq seemed to think that this company was valuable because they bought Zip2 for $300 million. And this deal netted Elon a cool $22 million. This was truly an era in Silicon Valley where nothing made sense and there's way too much money being thrown around. That's why the entire industry crashed soon after the sale. While the T0 was breaking barriers, Elon was using his Zip2 money to buy a McLaren F1, but he didn't put any insurance on it. This made things real awkward a few months later when the uninsured illegal immigrant crashed the $1 million car. The T0's rear brake regen would have really come in handy for Elon because he clearly didn't know how to drive a car with a manual transmission and no ABS or traction control. Stick to the easy stuff, Elon. He also spent some of that Zip2 money to start X.com. No, not that X.com, an older X.com. This was a broken online banking platform that allowed any user to walk into anyone's bank account and take money out of it as long as they knew their account number, which to my understanding is the main thing a bank is supposed to prevent from happening. Musk was replaced as CEO by investors due to his sheer incompetence, but managed to hold on to his shares. In 2000, X.com merged with PayPal, and in 2002, the Beanie Baby trading site bought PayPal for $1.5 billion. And Elon came out with $176 million. He got fired from the company and walked away with over $100 million. Incredible. I guess when your daddy owns an illegal emerald mine staffed with slave labor, the only way you can fail is upward. So this was around the time Elon actually got involved with Tesla. He just took some of that money from the X.com sale and bought a large stake in Tesla several months after it was already founded. Elon simply started calling himself a founder after buying his way in. Then he got sued for slander and libel for doing that. But then Elon was allowed to lie about his role in the company after reaching a settlement with the real founders. And then Elon pushed Eberhard out of the company and had Tesla engineers change the AC propulsion technology just enough so they can pretend that they developed their own tech. And that little maneuver gave Musk an excuse to stop paying licensing fees to the actual inventors of the electric propulsion system that Tesla was built on in the first place. And who was that engineer who redesigned the drivetrain? Well, it was none other than Wally Ripple. Oh my God, this guy is everywhere. He actually worked for Tesla from 2006 to 2008 while their first car was still in development. Tesla wanted to deviate from AC propulsion by using a 2-speed transmission, while the T0 was directly driven by the motor with no transmission needed. The Tesla design caused the motor to overheat, so in an engineering meeting, Wally suggested using a bigger motor and doing away with the transmission altogether. They didn't want to hear that. Months later, though, he was given a budget to design a bigger motor and test it out, and it worked. But they fired Wally anyways, and just increased the size of the inverter, which did nothing to fix the overheating issues. Top Gear later tested the Roadster and reported that the motor overheated so much that they couldn't even test it, just as Wally predicted.
And it doesn't appear you get much in the way of reliability either. Oh, I don't believe this. The motor's overheating and I've got reduced power. While it cooled down, we went to get the silver car out again. Only to find that while it was being charged, its brakes had broken. So then, with the light fading, we had no cars at all.
And Elon reacted by suing the BBC for reporting on their flawed vehicle. They eventually used Wally's larger motor design for the Model S, and every Tesla ever since is driven by Wally Ripple's motor design. Modern Teslas are still running on this stolen EV architecture to this day. This story is not unique. Nearly every corporate billionaire is a charlatan stuffing his pockets with money gained off of other, more intelligent and harder working people's ideas. SpaceX has been allowed to use NASA's research and facilities this entire time, but they still manage to struggle to accomplish what NASA has been able to do since the early 60s. Neuralink is based off of years worth of research done at UC San Francisco and UC Berkeley. Taxpayers funded all this research. Working class people did all the work, and some rich idiot shows up after all the hard work is already done and takes all the patents and revenues for themselves. I think that's bullshit. The first step to taking the corporate system back is to stop looking up to these rich idiots. The only thing they do is buy the right to take credit for other people's work and take the value that we create so they can keep it all for themselves. Nuclear energy, the microchip, the internet, Wi-Fi, satellites, GPS, the computer mouse, Tempur-Pedic mattresses, the microwave, the digital camera, the laptop computer. Taxpayers paid for the development of all of these things. Working class people in universities and research laboratories did all the work to create these advancements. These and dozens other innovations have made American workers 300% more productive than they were in the 70s, while working class pay has remained stagnant. The only people enjoying the financial gains from this increased productivity are billionaire shareholders who inherited their wealth. Most pharmaceutical compounds are created in universities and taxpayer-funded research organizations, not at pharmaceutical companies. Underpaid scientists and unpaid grad students do all the hard work of creating these new medicines, and we pay to fund all this research. All the pharmaceutical companies do is manufacture it, give it a stupid name, make commercials that nobody wants to watch, and then they jack up the price to sell it back to us for massive profits. We already paid to develop all of these drugs, then we have to pay again to be able to access these medicines? I think that's bullshit. We need to understand that every major technological advancement since World War II is our own creation. It belongs to us. Working class people paid for it through our tax revenues, and working class people work to develop it. And these rich people barely pay any taxes, so they give us the right to reclaim ownership of all these advancements for ourselves. Think about any shares you have in your portfolio, if you even have any. Choose any one of them and ask yourself, have I ever clocked in for a shift at this company? Have I ever answered an email on their behalf or worked a day in their office building? Of course not. That's not how the system works. The simple fact is, the entire income of most billionaires is derived from owning investments, and these people do not work at all. These people aren't business leaders. They bought their way into claiming ownership of the money generated by other people's work. That's it. Those are the facts. If you work for a living, you deserve a retirement, and unfortunately, a 401k or an IRA is the only viable way to build one in our current system. So there's nothing wrong with working class people owning shares. But the people whose entire income is derived from owning shares in other companies, they don't deserve that. That money is ours. We created it. McDonald's didn't create the Big Mac. This franchise owner is credited for inventing it, but some anonymous line cook is really who created it. Bezos didn't create anything. He put a bookstore on the internet while thousands of other people were trying to do the same thing as him. He's not a visionary. He just took an obvious idea and happened to be the lucky guy that came out on top. And the only reason why he came out on top is because he's a hedge fund guy and his daddy gave him $300,000 to start the company. Then he took the millions he raised from other people's work and bought up other people's companies and took more credit for more people's work. Windows wasn't the best operating system out at the time. Microsoft came out on top because Bill Gates' mommy was a board member at the United Way, with another guy who was also a board member at IBM. And she asked him to put Windows on all the IBM computers. IBM happened to be the most successful computer company at the time. So IBM came with Windows pre-installed, and now Windows is an enormous company. And because she did him that little favor, now I gotta sit through Teams meetings like 3 times a week. Poor leadership nearly drove Apple into bankruptcy until the company was saved by the iPod. But they didn't create that. An anonymous group of engineers and designers did.
He changed the world. The world was one way, and then Steve Jobs came, and it was another. What did he do? Somebody, for the love of God, what the fuck did that guy do? What did he do? He told other people what to invent? I want my entire music collection in that phone. Get on it! And then these poor, nameless, faceless scientists gotta go in a back room and figure it out. How the fuck are we gonna get all of this into this? I mean, what year does this guy think this is? This is crazy. This is like Buck Rogers. Steve Jobs just walking by. I don't hear any thinking going on in there. Just strutting around the office, eating some pretentious fruit like a pear, just throwing out ideas. There's another one. There's another one I just came up with on the way to work. I was reading a magazine the other day, turning pages, you know? I like to turn pages on a screen that aren't even there. Yeah, wrap your fucking heads around that, guys! And all these people slave away to make his vision come true.
The real creators of these billion-dollar products only got a meager salary for their efforts, while the owners of the companies get millions. But most of the money went into the pockets of the shareholders who had absolutely nothing to do with the creation of these products. And much of the time, they aren't even using their own money to buy up these shares. Most billionaire wealth is inherited. It's their mommy and daddy's money. The corporate executive class didn't buy a lot of the shares they own either. It's given to them as part of their compensation packages on top of their obscene salaries. A lot of private equity firms use a financial tactic called a leveraged buyout, where they take out a loan to buy ownership of a company, then they force the company to pay back that loan. And if a company doesn't pay back the loan fast enough, then they're forced into bankruptcy, even if they were profitable the entire time. Leverage buyouts is how we have lost so many beloved companies in the past few years, by collapsing under a massive amount of debt that is forced on them against their will. All of these tactics are used to take profits away from the working class. These shareholders don't work. They have never worked a day in their lives in many cases, and the corporate system allowed them to redistribute the wealth that we create. When somebody says, so what? Should someone who works in fast food make $20 an hour? The answer is yes. They should make $22 an hour, in fact. And people who make $70K a year should be making $250K a year. And the people who actually work and earn $1 million a year should be making $3 million a year. We are 3 times more productive than people were just a few decades ago. We should all be getting paid at least 3 times more than we are now. 2/3 of our money is being stolen from us before it even gets to our bank account. There is so much money in this country, but we are basically paying a 200% tax to lazy billionaires, and you don't even realize it. If they all disappeared tomorrow, the economy would work exactly the same way it does now, except everything would cost half as much, and we would all be getting paid 3 times as much as we do now. I am not even exaggerating. We all waste our time fighting the culture wars, arguing about race, sex, gender, immigration status. It's all a distraction. The only people causing you harm, stealing your money, and keeping you poor are the Wall Street billionaires. The people suffering under these oppressive systems have every right to fight back for their right to exist, but the people living on the upper tier of any 2-tier system needs to realize that there is one more tier above them, the shareholder class. And every time these people work to assert their place in the system, they're really just pathetic little foot soldiers making it easier for the corporate class to rob them along with everyone else. They are stealing from you every day because they own 93% of all corporate shares in the country, and they have monopolized every aspect of American life to keep prices high and wages low. The corporate-owned media keeps us all busy fighting each other while they steal all the wealth that we created. Some of us working middle-class types think that they are part of the Wall Street system because we have a 401k or a Roth IRA, or we buy stock at the retail level on an app on our phone. But we need to stop fighting over crumbs and take the entire system for ourselves. Once the working class people realize that shareholder wealth is theft, and most of it is held by people who don't actually work at all, we can start pushing for regulatory changes that will fix this broken corporate system, and this is what we're gonna do. We're going to divide all corporate shares into thirds. 1/3 of the shares will be owned by the employees of that corporation. 1/3 will go to the state and federal government in place of corporate tax. We're going to abolish the corporate tax. If this means I'm not going to hear another Wall Street bro whine about double taxation, that alone will make it worth it. And the remaining 1/3 of the shares will be bought and sold in retirement fund markets run by the state where the corporation is headquartered in. So 1/3 of the corporation's profits will go to the current employees, divided equally amongst them. From the CEO down to the janitor, everybody gets an equal share. That way, if you work for a company, you own a stake in its success and you own an asset that builds value over time. I mean, you create those profits, you deserve a piece of it, right? And these profits will be untaxed. Imagine every single employee earning a quarterly bonus check for the profits that they helped create, enforced by federal law. When a person retires, they get paid out for the value of the shares as a thank you for their service, and new employees gain shares when they are brought on board. The next 1/3 cut of the profits will go to the government, and it'll be split between the federal government and every state where the company does business. The profits will go to the government in place of the corporate taxes, like I mentioned earlier. Many profitable corporations evade taxes by using loopholes and other financial trickery, and many states offer tax incentives and subsidies to get corporations to set up shop there because jobs. And jobs are good. But that also means that employees end up having a larger tax burden than their employer, $1 million corporation. And I think that's bullshit. Some of these corporate-friendly states have no corporate taxes whatsoever, and corporate-friendly regulations in court systems that make it next to impossible to sue them for crimes. That goes away with our system. We will push for a unifying federal corporate regulatory definition that requires all corporations to pay a portion of their profits to every single state where they do business. Walmart is headquartered in Arkansas, where their state corporate tax rate is under 5%, but Walmart's trucks are tearing up the roads in all 50 states. They're sucking up resources and accessing workers educated at public schools across all 50 states. They're even underpaying their employees to the point where they need to access state and federal welfare programs just to survive. And Walmart pays for none of that. They need to pay for that. The way it works now, the employees are carrying a higher tax burden than the employer. But if 1/3 of all the profits are split up between the federal government and every state where the company operates, then these corporations will stop getting away with this scam. The final third of the shares can be bought and sold in a state-run retirement fund program. Every working person deserves a retirement. Our work builds the wealth in our economy. We deserve to enjoy its benefits. But forcing companies to offer a pension can become burdensome as companies get older and more employees retire. And the newer companies with no pensions to pay out have a natural advantage. So instead, 1/3 of the corporate profits across all companies will go into these state-run retirement funds, only accessible to working class people. No more retail level investors, no more speculators, no more shorting stocks or synthetic CDOs or other toxic Wall Street maneuvers that allow billionaires to make money while destroying a business or nuking an entire American industry. Now, the only people who can buy shares are people buying them for their own retirement, which will work similar to a 401k or a Roth IRA. Each state will manage multiple diversified funds populated with corporations headquartered in their state. That way, the states can compete with different regulations or incentives to see what yields the best and most reliable profits long term. But only working class people trying to build a nest egg will be able to access this portion of the profits. So naturally, corporations will focus on long-term, steady growth instead of these quick bubble and burst cycles that end up causing recessions and depressions. States will group corporations into funds so nobody can directly invest into an individual company. And this should help smooth out the volatility and risk of investing. Everything is automatically diversified, so you don't have to give up 2% of your gains to some dipshit to pick stocks on your behalf. And this will also allow states to raise funds for industries and businesses that might not typically draw investment by grouping them together with more in-demand companies. In fact, states can group these funds however they want to get their priorities accomplished. Do they want to group risky startups with established companies to draw investment into those new companies and kind of flatten the risk and volatility? Do they want to showcase a certain industry or sector to draw funds into something that a particular state is proud of? They can do that. States can offer hundreds of different fund options to draw investors and see what comes out on top. While the shares will be split into thirds, the voting rights will be split 50-50 between the employees and the retirement fund shareholders directly. The portion of the shares and profits reserved for the government will not come with any voting rights for obvious reasons. We don't want the government voting on what companies do. A major problem with massive asset management firms is they take your money and invest it for you, but they take the voting rights away from you. If you own shares as part of the state-run retirement funds, you will retain the vote associated with those shares. But why would the founder of a company incorporate under this new system? Wouldn't the owner of a private business just want to keep it private so they can keep all the profits themselves and keep control over that company? Actually, I would be okay with that. Private business profits are taxed as the owner's income, and the owner of the business does actual work in most cases. Business owners are also liable if their company is sued, so I have no problem if people decide to keep their businesses private. LLCs are also okay for the most part. They differ from state to state, but compared to corporations, they're mostly fine the way they are, so those types of businesses will kind of stay untouched. This new system will motivate the founders of the companies to incorporate by giving them a bonus 10% of the shares and profits from the moment they incorporate. So that means if a new company incorporates, the owner will get 10% and the other 90% will be split between the other three groups I mentioned earlier. So the owner can't sell these shares for any reason. They can't sell them to some wealthy mutual fund or transfer them to their own kids. The only person who can gain ownership of these special founder shares is the spouse of the founder of that company after that founder dies. Once the owner and the spouse pass away, though, the shares and all future profits are automatically distributed back to the workers, the governments, and the retirement funds. This system will also make venture capital and private equity firms go extinct by allowing private businesses to also sell shares to the government so they can access startup funds or gain money that they will need in place of filing for bankruptcy if things kind of get tough. And then the profit from the ownership stake can pay off the loan on its own, along with any payments made by the business owner. Then when that loan is paid off, the shares will revert back to the business owner and everything will go back to normal. And then they go back to owning the whole company. unless there's a partnership, and then partners will own their part. I don't want to get into details, but you know what I mean. The people who start businesses need to retain ownership of their own business. I'm tired of seeing rich idiots hijacking other people's businesses and driving them into the ground, and I think you should be tired of it too. So if a founder of a private business decides they want to incorporate, but they want to stay on as the CEO, they can get paid a salary for their work as the CEO, but also get paid out their 10% share of the profits on top of that. But if they want to incorporate and then retire and just get paid that special 10% founder dividend for the rest of their life, that's fine with me too. If they want to incorporate and then leave the company just so they can start a new business and then incorporate that one later on and keep pulling 10% from multiple companies, that's cool too. In any of these cases, they started the company, so they deserve something for it. But the children of the founder, they didn't do any work. They don't deserve any shares, and they don't deserve to live a luxurious life by stealing from the employees of the company that their parent created. And the venture capital firms don't deserve it either. They deserve it least of all. So as long as the founder of the company is still alive, they will retain a vote worth 10% that goes along with those special founder shares. And the employees of the company, along with the retirement fund shareholders, will be splitting the remaining 90%. So the founder can act as a tiebreaker if any of these votes get contentious, or they can sit it out and then let the employees and the retirement shareholders make decisions, or they can decide to throw all their votes behind the company employees in any case to give them an edge over their retirement fund holders if they want. You know, whatever they want to do is fine by me. Again, they started the business. They should have a say in the direction it's headed. This should create a natural check and balance within a corporation, making sure it benefits the workers and the greater economy as a whole, not just some tiny group of rich idiots who bought their way into the company, which is how the system works now. The founders, the employees, and the state and federal governments cannot sell their shares. Only the retirement fund shares can be bought and sold on the state-run exchanges. But what's the point of owning valuable shares if you can't sell it? Well, you can use it to take out a collateralized loan off of its value. The billionaire class already does this right now to dodge taxes. Does a company need a quick infusion of cash? Take out a loan. Does an employee want to pay for a home renovation? Take out a loan. Does a person want to use the equity they built in their personal retirement fund to start a business of their own? Take out a loan. And in the event the loan cannot be paid, then the bank who issued the loan can take over the shares and hold on to it until the dividends off of those shares pay off the balance automatically, and then those shares revert back to their original owner after the loan is paid off. So when a company files paperwork to incorporate and the intrinsic value of the company is established, 10% of the shares will be automatically retained by the founders. Then the state and federal government will pay 1/3 of the share value into that company to purchase the 1/3 of the shares that they'll hold. 1/3 of the shares will go into the retirement fund market so working class people can buy these shares to build their retirement. And the last 1/3 of the shares will be gifted to the employees. As a company grows, if they want to issue new shares for their new employees as they bring them on, then they will be required to also issue new shares for the state and federal government to buy up and more shares to be sold on those retirement fund markets. And if a company expands into new states, they'll issue new shares that the new state will buy and new shares for the new employees in that new state, and it'll keep growing. So companies will raise funds every time they hire new people or expand into other states because new shares will be sold, and that's more revenue for the company. And if you aren't comfortable with the idea of the government paying for shares, let me tell you about the hundreds of billions of dollars in corporate subsidies that are paid out every year. And in those cases, the governments don't get anything in return, not even tax revenue. And I think that's bullshit. They're just giving our taxpayer money away for free to these corporations and getting no tax revenue in return. No more overbearing CEOs trying to drive up their own personal income and the income of shareholders on the backs of their own employees. So if profits go up, every worker's income goes up. The retirement funds will see more dividends, and the state and federal government revenue goes up too. If management sucks, you can vote them out. Is executive pay too high? The employees can vote to cut their pay. Are the executives doing a good job? Well, the employees can vote to increase executive pay if that's what they want. It's self-regulating. No more shipping jobs overseas. What company would vote to offshore their own jobs? No more states giving out tax incentives to draw businesses to them. States will have to buy into the company so businesses can shop around for the state that offers them the best valuation and best regulations. Every company that is profitable is paying back to their workers, the state and federal governments where they operate, and towards the retirement of working class people across the country. This also eliminates the corporate tax system, which will simplify the whole problem of raising revenue for the government. If the profits are this, 1/3 of it goes to the governments. The only thing they'll really have to figure out is how it's going to be split up between the states where they operate and the federal government. No more working until you die. The entirety of the share and profit system will go towards worker pay, state and federal government revenue growth, which will pay for the social safety net for all citizens, and a retirement system that will guarantee solid long-term growth, with no more focus on the type of toxic short-term growth that speculators love, because speculators aren't even allowed to take part. No more putting off your retirement because you can't afford to retire. Workers should enjoy all the benefits because workers created all this wealth. They can build wealth and retire early, allowing younger people to move up the chain based on their own hard work and merit, and faster career progression means more income for the worker and higher income tax paid out and a better quality of life overall. No more leveraged buyouts forcing out the company founder so investors can profit from another person's hard work. No more speculators, because people can only buy shares as part of the diversified retirement fund system. And with no speculators, that means we will no longer have to endure the bubble and crash cycles that keeps pushing us into recessions. Basically, people will buy these shares as a part of their retirement fund, hold on to them until they retire, and then live off of them until they die. Once they pass away, those shares are absorbed back into the retirement fund system for someone else to buy. States will compete to foster a business-friendly environment to make sure that their state-run diversified retirement funds have the largest growth, and the performance of those funds will be the scoreboard that they can use to compete with each other. But the working class will be the ones who ultimately win out. Workers within these corporations will naturally want to work more efficiently because the more profitable they are, the larger the bonus they receive later on. People will be able to take out collateralized loans off the value of these investments too. So this will offer working class people the type of financial freedom only previously accessible by the wealthy. The only people who will lose out in this system is Wall Street. It will destroy their entire way of life. But I say, fuck them. They deserve worse. We, the working class, created all of this wealth. We deserve to keep it for ourselves. We deserve a system that benefits us and us only. And if the former billionaire shareholder class wants to make money, they can get a job. Nothing's stopping them. Or they can start a real business themselves instead of buying their way into other people's businesses. So how are we going to dismantle this system and take the shares held by the top 10%? By force. The government takes away property through eminent domain all the time. Police seize cash and property all the time for simply suspecting someone of a crime, and they rarely give it back. FDR busted the trusts as part of the New Deal. It was done before by gaining political power. We can do it again. The corporate class has stolen the value we generated since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We can take it back. We just need to want it bad enough. And with that being said, I want to announce my candidacy for the President of the United States. Nah, I'm just kidding. I can't do that. Unless I need to get at least like 1 million subscribers before I can even joke around like that. And I don't even have 100. Jesus Christ. I need subscribers. Help me out, guys. I hope we can work on this together. There are going to be a lot of details that we need to iron out. Share this with your friends and don't forget to hit subscribe, and we can talk about this, and as time goes along, we can kind of shape this idea into something a little more realistic. Help me get to 1 million subscribers so I can run for office. How about that? Or maybe I should just offer a Q&A if I get to like 10,000. How about that? We'll start with that. Let's get to work making this happen because we deserve more. Let's be honest. We deserve more. All right. Thank you.